Feroshia from Coach Training World, and I'm sitting here with Kim Kutsch, or better known as Dr. Kim Kutsch, who honestly is probably the only dentist I know, well, maybe one of a few dentists I know, that people actually are smiling to go see. And Kim is what I would call an incredible Renaissance man, artist, musician, author, speaker, teacher, coach. I know I'm missing a few things, but I'm really excited here because this is such a wild opportunity to talk about Kim's evolution from really being a dentist to becoming someone that's doing preventive dentistry and changing the dentist profession by coaching. But also he's got a couple other secrets in his back pocket that I'm really excited to be one of the first to reveal here, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, Kim, when we first met, it was in the classroom. You had signed
Uh-huh.
up to become a coach because you had developed tools, I would say teaching tools and methods and a product line around cavities. And there was something that was missing. And you came
Right.
to us at that point, and here we are. Could you begin there, a little bit about your history up to the point where the juicy part
Yeah.
comes in?
Yeah. Well, it's pretty funny for us when I look back because I distinctly remember, I developed a real interest in tooth decay, and I think everybody assumes that dentists are experts in tooth decay, and the reality is we are experts in how to fix cavities, but we're not really experts in to diagnose, what caused the cavities and how to correct that. And so I really got involved in the last 15 years of helping identify a system where we could help the patient identify what was causing their cavities and correct that. So that, I mean, that's the most important job or the most important thing I can do for a patient is help them find out what's causing their problem and help them correct that. And so they don't continue to get cavities. And that really changed my profession. And that's something that, really I found very rewarding. The challenge was then I needed to help for a lot of those patients, it was a behavioral change. And I absolutely, we were trained surgical skills, not behavioral management or behavioral change skills. And so that's when I called you and I just laughed because I had such a very specific need. And I remember asking you, Feroshia, what I need to know is I just want to know with coaching, if I can help patients learn how to make some behavioral changes around their tooth decay. And that was all I was interested in. And then I got to your program and I realized how broad coaching, I mean, just in wellness and in life, and how much it's changed my own life as well. So I kind of laugh now that it's like I had this very specific need, and then it grew into this really, I think, a lifestyle actually in being able to coach, all my patients, being able to help friends, my children, just having coaching skills is a real life skill. But it's just to me that I started with this image of this really narrow little tiny band of I just want to coach patients to be able to do this one thing, and I learned so much from that, and really it helped me. It's helped me so much in my practice as well. So I thank you, Feroshia.
You're welcome. And I also want to say you have also trained most of your staff in coaching as well.
Yeah. And I trained a number of teams, and it's in my entire office now, my entire staff. We really focus on being able to help people make those changes in their life to be able to become healthy and empower them to create a healthy lifestyle for themselves. And it's been one of the most impactful, I think, and personally rewarding things that I've done in my career. So it's really cool.
Well, and I love seeing the post on Facebook of your patients with their big smiles and their stories of coming from a place where they didn't feel very happy or fulfilled, or, I guess maybe some doubt in them with, in terms of their looks and their mouth.
Yeah.
And just
Oh, yeah.
shining brightly.
Yeah, that's always fun.
Yeah.
I love helping people do that. So, yeah.
And I really appreciate that about you, that you really care at that level.
Yeah. Well, thanks.
Yeah. But you said something that really brings me to mind why we're really here today. And that is coaching works with everything. And I watched you light up, Kim, and your creative prowess just blossom. And I get an email. I just wrote a book called Focus, and it sounds like for the industry and for the dental industry. And then a few months later, about 12 months later,
Right.
I got another book.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, what? How'd you do that? Like, okay, who wrote it?
And people ask it all the time. It's like, how do you find the time to do all the things that you do? And it's like, I don't know the answer to that question, other than I don't sit still a lot, and I don't watch a lot of television, you know. So it's kind of like I'm either writing or reading or painting or doing something, you know. I'm always, you know, actively involved, engaged in doing something in life, it seems like. So but it's fun. Yeah. But I wrote the first book. It was on tooth decay, and really incorporated that whole concept and the wellness model and the coaching kind of little bits and pieces in there. And that went on to there've been over 60,000 copies of that sold, Feroshia. Yeah, I know. I mean, when I wrote that, I really planned on just using it in my practice to help my own patients. And so it's found kind of a broad audience, and I think there's 135 dental schools and dental hygiene schools now that use that book, that textbook, kind of in some capacity. And I still hand it out to patients. I hand it out almost every day to help patients, you know, discover how to become healthy on their own. So that was my first. I've written a lot of professional papers. I've probably published close to 100 papers, I'll bet, in dental journals, and I'm acted as a reviewer for 5 or 6 different scientific journals around the world. But every time I sit down I do research and I'll write a paper on that, it's really structured. You know what you have to say, you know the format you have to write it in, and it's just it's not painful to do, but it's not a creative, enjoyable thing to do. I mean, it's you're bound by all these limitations. And so when I wrote the book on balance, on wellness, I wasn't quite so constricted, and I found that I really enjoyed writing when I had the opportunity to just create. And I started oil painting about maybe 7 or 8 years ago, and I found that to be just a relaxing, creative kind of experience. Something that I took some art class in high school. I hadn't painted since then, and one weekend Dana was gone. I thought, I'm just gonna have this desire to paint. So I started painting and found out how much I enjoyed that. And so then I think one thing led to another, and I thought, I always thought that I would someday write a book. I think everybody thinks that, like, someday I'm going to write a book. But last year in the summer, I had some free time, and I thought, this is a good time for me to start this book. And so and being able to just, with no constraints, just write creatively and just start and tell a story that you get to make up and you get to create was just, I had so much fun. I just can't believe how much I enjoyed that experience. And so that's opened a whole new world for me as well. So I've written a second installment to this book. It's going to be a trilogy, and then I'm actually working right now on writing the third book. So it's been fun.
Well, it's been fun, and by the look on your face, it feels extremely fun and very joyful. I almost see like the younger part of you coming out, like, really coming alive.
I think so. I mean, I feel younger doing that, I get into the story. It's so funny. I mean, you get into, I don't know what it's like for other authors, because I've not ever really been an author like that. But people ask me, like, where does it come from? How do you make this stuff up? And I'm like, I don't know. I really don't know. I sit down and I start writing, and it's almost like I'm seeing it happen, and I'm just like recording what I'm witnessing, rather like I'm in the story, making observations. Like I'm not a participant, I'm more of an observer than I am sitting down thinking like, what happens next? It just seems to like come and flow. I have no idea, but it's fun and enjoyable. And so it's like I say, I'll get into a zone and Dana will just leave me alone, and I'll write for 6 or 7 or 8 hours without even taking a break. It's just like, I'll look up and she'll go, "Are you ready for dinner?" And I'm like, what are you talking about? And it's like, oh, it's like 6 o'clock and I've been writing all day. And I'm like, wow, that's just that amazes me. But it's obviously something I enjoy, or I wouldn't be able to spend time like that. Yeah,
I wholeheartly agree. I want to ask you a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Here's the book. Oops, can you see it in the screen?
Yep. Rough World.
Da-da-da. And this is the first of the trilogy for the nonfiction, or not, excuse me, the fiction.
Fiction, yeah.
Yeah, the previous ones we'd probably consider more nonfiction.
Yeah, it was totally, totally about tooth decay. Yeah.
I have to say though, Kim, I love the fact that you're talking about tooth decay, and you're still excited about it.
It's one of my favorite topics. Just to, I don't get me started on tooth decay. We'll be here all day. Yeah.
Oh, so Rough World. I know that you talked about your grandchildren being part of the inspiration. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So,
what drew you into this book?
So it's kind of there's really a kind of a backstory to this book, and it's kind of a funny story. But my oldest grandson, James, when he was about 6 or 7, he's 11 now. So when he was about 6 or 7, he in his mind created this game, Rough World. And so it was this imaginary video game. And he worked out every level and every enemy and every detail and the weapons and everything that happened. So here's this kid like 6 or 7 years old telling me, and we'd sit and he could talk about it for hours, to the point where the rest of the family was like, don't bring up Rough World, right? Because he'll talk about it for all day, right? So it's like, and of course, you know me. So that's the first thing I'm going to say. So James, tell me about Rough World. And everybody like, oh no, don't ask him about that. And so then, James, this went on for a couple of years. And finally I was like, James, this is really good stuff. You should write this down. You should like make the video game, or you should write a book. This is really great stuff. Well, he's like 8, 9 years old. He's not going to do that. And so I started taking notes on my iPhone. Every time I'd be with James, I go, tell me about Rough World level 2 again. And what was the main character and what was the goal there? And I'd, be taking notes on my phone. So I took notes for about 2 years until I had the entire first world, like the first book put together. And he had also developed a couple of comic strip characters called some random guy and his best friend Tannic, and Tannic happened to be invisible. And so I thought, wouldn't it be great to take these 2 characters he created and put them, down the rabbit hole, so to speak, and into Rough World, and have them go through that whole experience live. And so that was kind of the idea and kind of some of the creation. And then I had to add a lot of my own material and creativity to that. But so I'm writing this book secretly, and I'm thinking like, I'm in my mind, I'm envisioning if there's an Oscar for grandpa, like being a grandfather, like I'm going to win, like I'm going to be the world's best grandpa for writing this book. And so I'm writing this. I've got the book written. I'm editing it. I've hired an illustrator for the cover. I mean, we're down to the final process. I'm getting ready to print it. And my daughter, his mother, kind of leaks to him that, Grandpa's writing this book on Rough World. And he was absolutely beside himself. He felt completely artistically violated. We've always had a wonderful relationship, and so we weren't on speaking terms. It was like he could not believe that I had taken these ideas and stolen his ideas and written this book. And I was like, I absolutely did not see, I did not see that coming. But as I sat and listened to him, I thought, I can understand, as an artist, I can kind of understand where you're coming from. And but it was too late. I've spent thousands of dollars and a whole year writing, and it's like I'm too far into this at this point in time to like turn back. So I go, I'm going to go ahead and publish the book and let the chips fall, and I'm going to credit him and dedicate the book to him. And hopefully someday as an adult he'll kind of maybe understand and appreciate that I did that. So I get the book published and I get it printed. And this was in July of this year. And so I get the copies to the house and I have James over, and it's a topic that I hadn't mentioned it in like 4 or 5 months because it was just, a forbidden topic. So I told Dan, I go, I have the books, they're sitting on the coffee table in the living room, and this is going to go one of 2 ways, right? Like he's either going to be really excited or like he may never speak to me again. So I walk him, and I said, James, I have something I want to show you. I very nervously walk him into the living room, and he sees it on the coffee table, and he picks it up, and he doesn't say anything for like 30 seconds. And I'm just sitting there. I'm like, oh, my heart has just stopped, right? And he looks at me and he goes, Grandpa, this is the coolest thing ever. And I was just like, oh. And, so he and I autographed a copy of each book for each other. And I showed him where I dedicated the book to him on, the dedication page. And now it's just like, now we get together again and we talk about Rough World, and he's given me ideas, helped me with the plot. giving me ideas for book 2, and now he's actually, I laid out the entire plot line to him for book 3, and so he's helping me fill in some details on some ideas and stuff. And so now it's something that we're sharing, doing together, which is kind of how I'd envisioned it in the first place. But so it was kind of there were some tenuous months in the middle of that, and it turned out the story has a happy ending, but it was kind of it totally caught me off guard. I mean, I did not see that coming at all. I mean, I thought I was going to be Grandpa of the Year, and it was a struggle for a while. So it's kind of an interesting backstory on the book.
Well, and I appreciate you sharing that, because I think there's so many times when we really have our heart in something and we're doing it for, Grandpa of the Year. I mean, who wouldn't want that?
Right. Right. I mean, I'm thinking like, what other grandparent would do this? I'm thinking like, wow, I'm just going to be a hero, right? And it just didn't. But honestly, as I sat and talked to him about it, I'm like, yeah, you know what? I can relate to that. Somebody took one of my ideas and did something with it on their own. I'd feel kind of violated by that. And so incorporating or including him in the story, and maybe the mistake I made, rather than surprising him with it, I should have included him in it at the beginning, so he felt more a part of it. Because certainly as the second book, he's almost read the entire second book, and he's so excited about this. He's like, Grandpa, it's like we can write 7 or 8 books out of this. And actually at this point in time, the exciting thing for me is he's talking about writing a novel now himself, and like he's 11 years old. So, he's a very creative kid, and I think that he may end up being an author or something. This may inspire him to do something great with his life too. So, so it's been really I've enjoyed the entire process. I mean, just for me personally, and I'll probably go on to write more. I'm sure I will, but it was just an interesting experience, the interplay and what happened with James as I was going through writing the book.
Well, it almost sounds like there's the process of writing the book, and also what I would say, learning together to be together in an even more effective way, grandfather to grandson.
Oh yeah. No, it's actually, I would say there's a greater depth to our relationship, as it's something now that we share. Another thing that we share in common, that we have. We actually took an online book writing course together this summer. I had the boys here so we sat and he and I watched this online program for a morning and took notes, and I, so that was fun as well. I mean, it's very rewarding as a grandparent. I mean, any time that you spend with your grandchildren. So it was fun, but his first reaction to this really caught me off guard, and I was devastated, I mean, at first, but so it's turned out well at this point. Yeah.
I love it. So you're in the middle you've completed the second book of the trilogy.
Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. I thought we lost our connection for a second.
No technology troubles, please.
Yeah, I know.
So you wrote the second, you're finished with the second.
Right.
And then there's the third, that's kind of the final piece of the trilogy.
Yeah, kind of pulls all of the pieces together. So in the first book, the 2 characters, you kind of understand how they end up in Rough World, and then they have to battle, through to get a chance to be able to return back home, and then in the second installment, the protagonist is a girl, and Ooh. So I have granddaughters, and so we introduced a new character, and so that was, and I tell you, I enjoyed so much writing it from the perspective of a girl going through, in this Rough World game. And so I really enjoyed that a lot. So I primarily was thinking about my granddaughters as, just knowing that they need to know that they're empowered to do anything that any boy can do, they can do, and they can do better. And that that they need to feel like, we can do that, empower them as well. And then in the third book is really the kind of the background hero in this book, which I didn't realize the character in the Rough World is a scientist and helps people. And I didn't realize this, that James, that I was the character for that person. That I didn't realize that was me. And as he had created this rough world game in his mind. Dr. Denton, who is in rough world and is a scientist trying to help the people there, I didn't realize that was me. And my son-in-law actually had, well, you know who that is? And I'm like, well, no, I have no clue. It's just, you know, Dr. Denton. And it's like, no, that's you. And I'm like, James explained that to me, that's you. He created you in this game. And I'm like, wow. I mean, it really touched me. I had no idea. So the third story is all about kind of Dr. Denton, and it brings all of the, it's basic good versus evil, you know, but it brings all of the stories together and kind of finishes and, you know, shows how all of those characters are how their lives are interconnected and how they came to be interconnected, and then provides the finish to the story, which obviously no spoiler alerts here. So can't tell you how it ends, but I really enjoy the ending to the story. So it's kind of fun.
Well,
fun to write.
The interesting thing here is you're talking about a book that embodies relationships, the relationships between the characters, the relationships between, you know, what they have with themselves.
Yep.
And I'm also hearing that those relationships in a different way are also out in the real world too, as part of your model.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. And interestingly, Dr. Denton kind of coaches these young people.
Of course.
And I hadn't really thought about that until you were just talking. I'm thinking, you know, really, he at each level through the game, like he's coaching them. And so that's kind of fun also, you know, just to see the interplay of here's a mentor that's coaching these kids through some challenging times in their lives. And so that was kind of fun, and helping them see that they can do something that they don't at first think that they have the ability to do. So it's kind of fun. So it's been and then I've buried a lot of, I think tribal stories, you know, just within the family, things, little comments and phrases that certainly my own family finds humorous, and I think that other people will certainly relate to as well. You know, just relationships between grandparents and grandchildren and friends and what have you. So it was really, like I say, it was a really fun experience, and I hope that people enjoy reading the book, or enjoy reading the series actually, because it's a fun series.
Yeah. Well, and I love the fact it's a inventive way to look at overcoming life's obstacles, and, you know, receiving the support that's available to us, and also
Yep.
modeling, you know, the beauty of having a mentor, having someone that really believes in you, you know, as part of the, you know, what we would call in the hero's journey, that mentoring process that helps us be even better.
It's really the characters, the protagonists in the first two books are actually on a hero's journey. I mean, both of them, and then the three of them actually in the third book. So it's kind of fun. Like I say, I really hope people enjoy reading it. It's been fun for me to write, and I'm really just hoping that other people will, you know, it finds an audience and that people enjoy reading it.
So you, as the hero in your own life journey, what are you learning right now in this process?
I think I've learned a lot about being an author. That's wow. You know, and that whole world has changed so much, from bookstores and actual physical copies of books to all going digital and electronic. And so that whole model and business model of writing and how you get your work out to people, that's changed dramatically in the last 5 years. And so trying to break into the world of authors has been that's a hero's journey right there. I mean, just trying to get your foot in the door, and trying to get into a bookstore, trying to get onto a bookshelf somewhere, trying to get somebody's attention. It's like, hey, I've written this book. Now I've written it, but I didn't write it just for me or just for my grandchildren. It's really something I wanted to share with the world. So trying to be able to get that out there to people is more challenging now, I think, than it has been in the past, on one hand. On the other hand, you don't have to print it. I mean, you can go directly to an ebook, and people can download it. And there's a lot of, I think, at this point in time, I would say that I don't envision yet that we know exactly how all that's going to end up. in terms of that whole business model. I'd say that's still up in the air. An interesting approach, The Martian, the author that wrote The Martian that was just in the theaters, he actually wrote that book and couldn't get it, the same kind of thing. You can't get it published. You have very limited access to be able to do that. And so he made it a free download on his website. So here's this book, and he made it freely available to people just as a free download. And it gained enough ground support and momentum amongst people that were, word of mouth, that it actually attracted the attention of a screenwriter, and they made the movie out of it. And then obviously a publisher picked up the book, and now they've sold, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of copies of it. So there's a lot of different avenues now to get your message or your book out to readers. So, but it's changing. It's changed so much that and we're kind of in between I think phases of how do you get to market, and there's no certainty in that. So I think it's more of a challenge for authors, and particularly, somebody like me, first-time authors, trying to get books out. It's a challenge.
Well, and go ahead.
Oh, so I was going to say, so that's been kind of a hero's journey for me. I've met with a lot of rejection, and it's really just coming to understand that it's been a very educational experience for me as well. And I think I have a much greater appreciation for what authors go through. You think that, oh, that's easy. You look at, somebody, selling a Harry Potter book, they sell, or, Bill O'Reilly writes a book, Killing Anybody, and it sells 250,000 copies the first day. And you think, well, how do you get to that point? And it's almost, the barrier is almost impossible to get there. Once you get there, it's easy to continue to sell books. So for me also, the thing I think that I'm learning just on my own journey here is just how much I enjoy writing, and that this will probably from here on out be a part of my life. Like, I'll continue to write and create. So, because I just enjoyed it so much. And also there's something that I can do, at any point in time, and be able to continue to do as I age as well, and be able to share things that with people. So whatever the topic is, I'll continue to write. So that's been, just part of my own journey.
Something I wanted to touch on. First of all, I just realized you're actually sneaking in personal growth in almost like a sci-fi gaming book. I just saw that. I'm like, okay.
There is some personal growth that goes on these characters in the book. I mean, it's pretty, there is, and I think they come to understand, these young kids, the protagonists are 10-year-old boys, coincidentally, in the first book. And then by the time the third book rolls around, they're all like seniors in high school and looking at what are we going to do with our lives, and where am I going to go to college, and kind of looking at those issues that you have as a young adult, and struggling with, what kind of relationships am I going to have? And now here's my best friend. What's going to happen to us next? And we're going on with our lives. And what do you want to do? What are you going to do? And looking at like real life issues. And, I can remember clearly being 16 or 17 years old, and my friends and I dealing with, confronted with those kind of real life issues of like, where am I going to go to college? What am I going to study? What do I want to do with my life? And so that's been, that's part of the book. It's part of the stories as well. So.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, because I know other people have dreams, like, and are achievers as well. And yet that part around rejection, I mean, in many ways, Kim, you take off in many new territories. And, you've said yourself, sometimes I feel like I'm going up against a wall, and then when you're being rejected, how do you, what kind of attitude or approach do you take that keeps you in the game at the level you keep playing at?
I think you just have to have a really good belief in yourself. I think you have to have a really good, you have to be really grounded and know that what you're doing is right, and it comes from your heart. And you really get to a point, I think, when you get really clear on your mission, that it really doesn't matter. If you're really clear, it's almost like you don't have an option not to do that. Like there are things I've done in dentistry as a pioneer where I've taken a lot of criticism and a lot of insults, yet I knew that they were the right thing to do. And and the thing that I think at my core was I knew that I couldn't be happy with myself as a person if I didn't do it. It wasn't like, you know, sometimes I've said to you, why does it have to be so hard? Why do I have to do this? And it's like, you know, why me? Why do I have to do this? And it's because I think I don't see anybody else doing it, and I'm willing. And you know, and so I think the more that you do that, the easier it gets. I would have to say, like, you get to a point, maybe some of it's, you know, turning 60 last year, and you get to a point where, yeah, I really don't care what you think of me anymore, because I know this is right. I'm going to do it. And if you want to say bad things, go for it. You know, knock yourself out. I don't care. And because I know that people will at some point in time identify that this is a person who's sincere, and that they, you know, they're honest and they mean what they say, and they're really trying to help people. And if you come from that point, I think that you have the confidence to just keep going. And then being an artist and putting some of my prints out into auctions and watching that, I mean, you really put your heart and soul out there. I mean, you expose yourself. And the first couple of times I did that, it was scary. And, you know, then eventually some of them sold for a lot more money than I thought they would. And then sometimes you'll be in an audience where, you know, nobody really liked that particular painting. And so, you know, it sells for, you know, you almost feel bad about how low it sells, but you can't judge yourself by the response of an audience to something that you've done. I think as an artist, you do it for yourself and your own pleasure and enjoyment. And I think you kind of try to be your own audience and be your own critic. And so I think as long as you do that, I think that's how I've been able to maintain sanity in that world. But going around to bookstores and even video game stores and taking my book and trying to share it, that's, you know, you meet a lot of people close the door in your face. You know, it's like, no, we're not interested unless there's been a lot of publicity, unless we're going to sell 5,000 copies, you know, we're not interested in your book. And it's kind of like, okay, well, I know there's an audience out there somewhere, and I'm going to keep going. I'll find it, you know, in some avenue, I'm going to find that, and just not get discouraged. So I think that's, I think that's probably the best advice I could give, Feroshia. But I think just being grounded and having a really being clear about what you believe in and the belief in yourself and why you're doing something, I think helps you shoulder, you know, a lot of the rejection that you find.
Yeah. Well, and, you know, we hear so many stories of people that are very famous and been very fortunate to have their creativity, to have, you know, whatever it is that they stand for out in the world. And I think everyone would say that it didn't happen overnight. It took discipline. It took, you know, believing in yourself, and also probably having mentors and people that had your back along the way to make, you know, your own hero's journey palatable.
Oh, absolutely. You know, the things that I've done in dentistry, I couldn't have done without the mentors that I have, who have had my back all the way along, and kept encouraging me at times when I would get frustrated or discouraged, and say, no, you're on the right path. You're doing the right thing. You got to just keep going. And, you know, don't read that. Don't pay attention to the criticism. You know, keep going. And so I think, you know, having those mentors and again, just professionally, like I've been in dentistry for 37 years now, and you know, it took probably 10 or 15 years before I got invited to speak locally. Like, you know, I get invited to speak at meetings all around the world, but, you know, you're never an expert in your own backyard, you know, in your own hometown. And, but over time, you know, but again, I think you're right, Feroshia, it's a time thing. It doesn't happen overnight. I look at I think it's real seductive to think like, oh, they were an overnight success, but all of them put in the 10,000 hours, all of them put in the 10 years of hard work to get to the point where they got a break. So I think also being realistic about the fact that, yeah, my first book isn't going to sell 250,000 copies. That's okay. You know, that's not my goal, you know, so I'm writing and I'm doing my thing and I'm enjoying it, and I'm going to share it with the world. And eventually more and more people over time will read it, and it will find an audience, and it will grow from there. So I think having some realistic goals in that regard too.
Yeah. But also holding that optimistic outlook that you always are so good at.
Yeah, I am an optimist.
You are. Well, and I think that's why so many people look to you, because you're so inspiring, you know, and I always hear the can-do attitude, you know, and sure, you hit the, you know, the fan and you're like, and you pop right back, and that's just beautiful.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that, Feroshia. I had actually just had a fellow first-time author who dropped by my house and gave me a copy of his first book. a couple weeks ago, and I didn't realize how much that I had inspired. And he told me that you inspired me to do this. And he had actually started to write it and then kind of put it on the back shelf. And I didn't know that he was writing a book. And then I shared with him that I was writing this book. And then I actually, when I got it published, I gave it to him, got it printed, and he was like, that inspired me to finish my book and get it completed, right? And so you never know. You don't always know the people that you touch and the lives that you touch, and so you just got to keep doing good things and planting good seeds. And I think that over time it all adds up. But it's very rewarding. I tell you, I loved it when he came and brought the book. I mean, it just made me feel really good. And it's a great book as well. So it was really cool. But
I love it. Well, I'm curious, if I was to want to purchase this, what would be the best way to do that?
The best way to do that is, at the moment, is to go to Amazon, and it's on Amazon. You can buy a copy right there, and just search on Amazon. Just search for Rough World, or you can search my name, V. Kim Kutsch, as an author, and it'll pop up, and you can get a paperback or a hardback. You could contact me directly. Eventually, I'm going to have my own website for paintings and books and what have you, but I don't have that done just yet. Where people can buy the book or download an ebook from me. But it's also available on Kindle at Amazon as well. But so in the meantime, if they wanted to contact me directly too at my email, I'd be happy to send them a copy if they want an autographed copy for one of their children or grandchildren. If you have people in your family that love to play video games, I think they would really enjoy this book, because that's really the vehicle for the story itself. So I'd be happy to send them an autographed copy as well.
Oh, that's wonderful, Kim. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Feroshia.
Yeah. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you might want to add in before we close out today?
No, I think that pretty well covers it. If anybody, it's funny. Actually, I was on a trip visiting some friends in Montana last week, and my friend there was like, someday I want to write a book. And because I took a copy and I gave all my friends each a copy of the book last week, and he's like, someday I want to write a book. And I say, you know what, Pat? When you get to the point that you want to write, you're really serious about writing a book, please call me, because I've made a lot of mistakes. I know where all of the minds are in that minefield for a first-time author, because I've just gone through that. And so there's a lot of different ways that you can go, and I can certainly help you identify the best route for yourself. So, I would say the other thing is, if anybody out there was thinking about writing a book, and certainly, Feroshia, you've written a couple of books. I know you have. So, you know what that minefield looks like. But happy to share my experiences with anybody that is interested in writing a book, and I encourage them to do that. If you have a book inside of you, don't hesitate to get started on that, and then I'm happy to share with whatever information I have.
That's awesome. I'm hearing that you might be, yeah, and a comedian too. Add that to the list. So it sounds like you might be open to some book coaching.
Yeah, absolutely. I would enjoy that. I mentor a lot of people in a lot of different avenues, and so I'd be happy to do that. That'd be fun.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kim, for sharing yourself, your massive creativity, and your generous heart. And I can't wait to see the third book, because it kind of left me hanging.
And you'll still be hanging just a little bit after the second book.
I know. It's like, wait a minute. It reminds me of the 30-minute shows on Amazon. It's like, wait a minute. I like completion. And I also want to acknowledge, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know. We all want closure, so I promise you there will be closure.
Yeah. Well, and that's what kind of brings my last point up is, I'm going to be honest here. Most people, I would guess, when they think of a dentist, because it's precise, very detail-oriented work, to hear you flow in that right hemisphere processing, that very creative, open relational thinking, is really exciting, and I'm imagining there's a lot of people in your industry or like-minded industries that, require a lot of data, intellectual, that, thinking.
Right.
you know, that
Right.
has to be fairly precise, and just to feel that liberation that you spoke about, just
Oh,
flowing and creativity and that ease and time passing by. Oh,
yeah, it
yeah.
was fun. I mean, I would think, you know, for a lot of people that we all have, I think, a lot of creativity, you know, inside of us that we don't ever really experience or try, you know. And I always like encourage my kids and my grandchildren. It's like, you know, well, how do you know that you don't do that if you've never tried? And you should be open to trying a lot of different things in your life and see there might be something that you're really going to enjoy that you wouldn't know if you didn't just try it the first time. And so, you know, I think there's a lot of people that we get bound professionally, you know, whether you're an engineer or a scientist or even an attorney, accountant. You can go down a list of different jobs that are very left brain,
Yeah.
and so they've really kind of, I think, squelched their inner child on that right brain creativity stuff. You know, being able to paint outside of the lines. And I think that, but they have the ability. I mean, it's there, and they just need to go to rediscover it, you know, in themselves. So, and I'd encourage them to do that.
Oh, it's got to feel good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Kim Kutsch, author, speaker, pioneer, fill in the blank, you.
Well, thank you, Feroshia,
Yeah.
my coach.
And I will look very much forward to seeing the next book and seeing more of you.
Yep,
And
absolutely.
have a wonderful, wonderful holiday season, and we'll talk soon.
And you as well. Thanks, Feroshia.
Mwah. Thank
Bye-bye.
you so much.